So give glory and praise to the Most High, Ahaya, Ahaya, Yoshaya, and Wawawak. Welcome to the Feast of Dedication. So far, Father, we give you glory and we thank you for this Feast of Dedication. And we thank you for all that the Maccabees did to let us celebrate this Feast of Dedication. Father, we will not tarnish it by calling it Hanukkah or anything else outside of what it is. We thank you and appreciate everything that you continue to do for us. And we're going to praise your name and we're going to worship you. We love you. Thank you. Allah. All right, our opening scriptures will be Isaiah 49th chapter. Listen, oh, listen unto me, and hearken, ye people from far. The Lord hath called me from the womb, from the bowels of my mother, hath he made mention of my name. And he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand hath he hid me, and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver hath he hid me, and said unto me, Thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Then I said, I have labored in vain, I have spent my strength for naught, and in vain, yet surely my judgment is with the Lord, and my work is with my power. And now saith the Lord, that formed me from the womb, to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. Though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorified in the eyes of the Lord, and my power shall be my strength. And he said, It is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Thus saith the Lord, the Redeemer of Israel, and his Holy One, to him whom man despiseth, to him whom the nations abhor, to the servant of rulers. Kings shall see and arise, princes shall also worship, because the Lord that is faithful, and the Holy One of Israel, and he shall choose thee. That was that was Isaiah 49, 1 through 7. And I pray that the Lord is blessed with the reading and hearing of his word. With that, we're going to be going into our praise and worship and our prayer. Our praise and worship.
Ahaya! people. Say God, always speak of us, no peace enough. Never eat by evil, get heated up. Did you beat him up? Did the enemy controlling us, defeated us? Straight up. Drop the religious so there's no what the vision. We on a mission trying to get around the people. Even the brothers, we should be helping each other. Instead of the body, we color through the evil. But people to stop the nonsense and think about the next generation. If the foolish will lead and the knowledge of the wise is gone, it's gonna be a messed up situation.
I've been chilling with the little rock lady, you know what I'm saying? She's been teaching me some new stuff, some brand new knowledge. It's taking me to the next level.
She got me praising the Most High, praising the Most High, giving praises to the Holy One.
Praising the Most High, you know what I'm saying?
Praising the Most High, praising the Most High, giving praises to the Holy One.
You're so good.
She's so amazing, and the highest of me. Yes, I'm seeking what I'm seeking. I'ma keep seeking, yeah. She got me praising the Most High, praising the Most High, giving praises to the Holy One. Listen to me. I'm a strong believer, the Holy Spirit, yeah. And I believe when you find the truth, you need to hold on to it, yeah. You take over your mind, it will make you alive, it will change your life, yeah. And I gotta feel the Holy Spirit, it felt so good, the feeling was right. I stay up all the night and pray about it, all day. Ain't never felt this way by no knowledge. Got me praising the Most High. She got me praising the Most High, praising the Most High. Giving praises to the Holy One. She got me praising the Most High, praising the Most High. Giving praises to the Holy One. She's so amazing, and the highest of me. Yes, I'm seeking what I'm seeking. I'll keep seeking it, yeah. She got me praising the Most High, praising the Most High. Giving praises to the Holy One. The lives in me. Couldn't even be that was called to be chosen to walk in the light. Her knowledge is so good. I was seeking till the sun came up. Alright. In my past, never had no understanding on any knowledge of the Holy Spirit. Yeah. Really glad I found the truth that night. The Holy Spirit with His knowledge don't change my whole life. I stay up all the night and pray about it. I pray about it all day. Ain't never felt this way by no knowledge. Got me praising the Most High. She got me praising the Most High. You know got me praising the Holy. She got me praising the Most High, praising the Most High. Praises to the Holy One. She's so amazing, and the highest of me. Yes, I'm seeking what I'm seeking. I'll keep seeking, yeah. She got me praising the Most High, praising the Most High. Giving praises to the Holy One. The lives in me. This might be mine. This might be, yeah. Oh, yeah. This might be.
Got me praising the Most High, you know what I'm saying?
This might be too deep for your mind.
Yeah.
Deep for your mind.
The rock is something serious.
This might be too deep for your mind.
Yeah.
Deep for your mind. Deep for your mind. Praising the Most High, yeah.
Praising the Heavenly Father.
Yeah.
Bless you. Wow. Thank you. You know, Father, I've heard and read in history what you did back in Egypt. How you defeated all our enemies. Yeah. You say you're going to do it again. Bring me to real life. Babylon. every day that I wake up now, it's so exciting. Lord, you're the greatest. You're the greatest in the world. I love you. Keep blessing me. Just keep on blessing me, Lord. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Just keep on blessing me. Everything comes from you. Everything comes from you. Comes from you. I wake up every morning. I can't wait to see your face. No. You've been so good to me. I just can't stay away from your love. Said you keep blessing me. Keep blessing me. Said you keep on blessing me. Said you keep blessing me. Keep blessing me. Said you keep on blessing me. It makes me feel good to know that I can have anything if I had your name. If I had known this long down low, I never would have been struggling. So hard struggling. And I won't let you go until you bless me, Lord. If you would, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessing me. Keep blessing me. Said you keep on blessing me. Said you keep blessing me. Keep blessing me. Said you keep on blessing me. Lord, you know what I need before I ask. You're a great God. There's no one like you. You're the most high. Be magnified. Bless your name. Can I just sing for your love? Can I just sing for your love? Can I just sing for you? Can I just sing? Can I just sing for you? Can I just sing for your love? Can I just sing for your love? Can I just sing for you? Can I just sing for your love? Let you know how you make me feel, how you make me feel. Alright. Let me just praise your name. Let me praise your name. I can't do it watching you. I'm watching you. Keep blessing me. Keep blessing me. Said you keep on blessing me. Said you keep blessing me. Keep blessing me. Said you keep on blessing me. Oh, said you keep blessing me. Keep blessing me. Said you keep on blessing me. Said you keep blessing me. Keep blessing me. Said you keep on blessing me. Every day down in the day, keep blessing me. Oh, every day that I wake up to see, I was seeking you, Lord. Because you give me that goodness, oh, yeah. Keep blessing me. Thank you, Lord. Oh.
And want us to shut up. Now we must be praising his name. He exposed them. The conspiracy theorists have an idea, but their focus is only on the evil that's being done. I'm tired of hearing about the problem. What a solution. I'm tired of hearing about the flesh for the spirit. The missing piece is the centerpiece, the most high, knocking out all bones. You crush the shot, knocking out all bones.
I will praise His name.
Never beat me.
Until I feel ashamed.
Undefeated.
Know that's who we
The
is.
magnificent.
He's magnificent.
The magnificent.
I will praise His name. Until I feel ashamed.
Yeah.
We know just who we is.
Yeah.
He's magnificent.
There's only one separation, that's right and wrong. Anything other than that, I am not on. Who the Father?
A-H-A-Y-A-H.
Who the Son?
Y-A-S-H-A-Y-A-H.
Stand up for them and they'll stand for you too. But if you out here rolling over in this true faith in you, I will not be ashamed. I'ma praise His name. From the public to the private and never refrain. I'ma stand up to the congregation of the wicked. And those claiming righteous, I'ma make sure they hit it. 1 John chapter 4, believe not every spirit, but trying. They better really have they all in it. Or they gon' have to get away from around me. Baby ain't gon' be a Pharisee around me. Shout out to my fans struggling with their sins, trying to cleanse from within to be the bad man. All praise.
I will praise His name.
Praise His name.
Until I feel ashamed. We know just who He is.
Who is it?
He's magnificent.
Magnificent.
I will praise His name.
Praise His name.
Until I feel ashamed. We know just who He is.
Who is it?
He's magnificent.
He don't play, look at all He done to us. For dropping them in blends where we don't mix up. Gotta eat from one plate, drink from one cup. Quick to turn down the fat beef where there is no love. I'd rather hang where they real, but eating on earth. 15th book of Proverbs, 17th verse. Believe the pain is only temporary. I see us flying in the skies out of cemetery. I see us going through the halls and walk straight through the walls where they kept us locked up and treated us like dogs. Used to hear for caviar, Dr. Shrink, Leviticus 11. That's abomination. Used to want to be rich, then He made me the devil. The rich don't get the gold unless they give it to the poor. Oh, the God I serve is so merciful. Oh, He is my shepherd, I shall not want. All praise.
I will praise His name.
Praise His name.
Until I feel ashamed. We know that's who He
Who
is.
is it?
He's magnificent.
Magnificent.
I will praise His
Praise
name.
His name.
Until I feel ashamed. We know just who He
Who
is.
is it?
He's magnificent.
Magnificent.
We call Him a higher.
Magnificent.
Magnificent.
Just make it love. You gotta get up and do work. Everybody should use it. Even if you ain't chosen, you still glad to hop in the book. Read the Bible. Isaiah 63:7. I will mention the loving kindness of thy power and the praises of thy power, according to all that thy power has bestowed on, and the great goodness of the house of Israel, which He has bestowed on them of His mercy, and according to the multitude of His loving kindness, all the afflicted, the have not, all the poor, sing praises to the name of thy power and be delivered. Jeremiah 23:13. Sing unto thy power, praise ye thy power, for He has delivered the soul of the poor from the hand of evildoers. All tribes visit, which are the 10 northern tribes, praise the name of thy power the high. All the whole house of Judah, which are the tribes of the southern kingdom, cleave to the praise of thy power. Jeremiah 13:11. For as the girdle cleaveth to the loins of a man, so as I cause to cleave unto me the whole house of Israel, and the whole house of Judah, saith thy power, that they might be unto me for a people, and for a nation, and for a praise, and for a glory. They would not hear this word, hearken unto this word, return to this word, and speak this word. It's the only reason why you was giving them out. 1 Peter 4:11. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of the Most High. If any man minister, let him do it as the ability which the Most High gives, that the Most High in all things may be glorified through Yahshua Christ, to whom be praised and dominion forever and ever. Everybody should be doing this. Declare His name among the nations. There's Psalm 22:22. I will declare thy name unto my brother in the midst of the congregation. Will I praise thee? Declare His name among the heathens also, that the heathens can praise His name. Psalm 96:2-5. Sing unto thy power, bless His name. Shoot forth His salvation from every that breeze. Declare His name among the heathens. His wonders among all people. For thy power is great and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods. Why? For all gods of the nations are idols, but thy power made the heaven. There is only two kinds of people in this world, those who praise Him and those that don't. Let's get the faith of those that don't. Isaiah 38:18. For the grave cannot praise thee, death cannot celebrate thee. They that go down into the pit cannot hope for thy truth. Praise thy power for his truth. Psalm 25 and 1 through 2. Unto thee, O thy power, do I lift up my soul. O my power, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed. Let not mine enemies triumph over me.
Yes.
Maccabees chapter 1, and the king had sent led by the messengers into Jerusalem and the city of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land and pollute the sanctuary of the holy people, set up altars and grow and chapels of idols and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. And they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation to the end that might forget the law.
Yeah, you're so dedicated, I don't wanna have to leave. I go respect for the savage, yes I'm a Maccabee. You got your laugh off, disrespected father first hope. Down I broke, killed pigs on the altar, it was far from over Jack. Jonathan didn't go for that, and we still gon' clean your bones out the valley of Jehoshaphat. Gotta be silly, you know who you messing with. Snatch your soul out your nose hole, let them stretch a bit. No more Mexican customers and players like, back to the way we did it in Judea like, Father, you remind on my knees like I was this time last year. Loaded up to deep, remember me? Don't leave me stranded, I am empty-handed. Letting go of things you don't like. You the tribe on mine. Hanukkah, Hanukkah, Christmas, peace and dedication, peace of life, let's get so education. Holy peace and dedication. Holy peace and dedication. Dedicated. Holy peace and dedication. Dedicated. Holy peace and dedication. So I dedicate my temple to the Most High. For putting up with my like a horse, like we've been through a lot. From the start, check out our history. They removed the apocrypha, so y'all should look up Maccabees. Chapter 4, we knew the war, tried to keep us from a higher. Lots of smoke, things was burning. At night, see the glow of fire. We the hunger here, we was taught to always fear. Now we don't need the Father. Y'all want us to worship Nimrod? Learn not what the heathen do. That's Jeremiah 10:2. Pine trees to stay outside, not in your living room. The feast of dedication is a holy day. We don't do Hanukkah, so y'all can cry the blues with your harmonica. They came up in our residence with evil code Veronica. We failed, but we got right back up. Now we bombing it. The Bible's our history. You can put your Smithsonian job for Christmas. You spend your checks and worship Babylonian gods. Education. Holy peace and dedication. Holy peace and dedication. Dedicated. Holy peace and dedication. Holy peace and dedication.
That's how we was talking before we got kidnapped.
First Maccabees chapter 4 and 21. They were panic-stricken at the sight. And when furthermore they saw Judas Maccabees troops drawn up for the battle of the plain, and they all fled into Philistine territory. Judas Maccabee then turned back to plunder the camp and the large sum of gold and silver with violet and sea purple stuff and many other valuables were carried off. On their return, the Jews chanted praises to heaven, saying, He is kind and His love is everlasting. That they that receive the remarkable deliverance in Yahshua.
Just like that. And that's how it happened. We got our temple back. That's why we celebrate this. That's how the Most High would do it. And deliver it. And make it an annual thing every year. Like, remember when I saved you? Every year. Celebrate it every year. We remodeled it. We got everything brand new. The Maccabees had all that gold and silver that they took from the wretches. Antiochus and them. We started all over. The building and our own body. We dedicated our temple back to the Most High. You know what I'm saying? See, this has meaning. This is not a
fat white man that's too old to get on top of the chimney. And if he get up there, he too fat to fit down the chimney. What if you celebrate? So on that note, it's been Grand Family. You know what I'm saying? Brother Brown Spot. You know what I mean? Happy feast and dedication, Yasha Allah. Y'all be blessed. Shabbat Shalom.
Soldier, keep on marching on.
Fleury.
Head down till the work is done.
Rhyme a lot.
Waiting on that morning sun.
Listen.
Soldier, keep on marching on. Head in the dust, feet in the fire. Labor on that midnight wire. Listen for that angel choir. You got nowhere to run. Wanna take a drink of that promised land. Gotta wipe the dirt off of your hands. Careful son, you got dreamers land. But it gets hard to stand.
To my brothers and my sisters in the war, you gotta press forward if you want that reward against all odds, even if it's death at the door. Cause they might kill the body, but the spirit lives on. They say vengeance is the Lord, so don't worry about that. He'll be coming right back, and his judgment ain't slack. So all you gotta do is endure like a good soldier, overcome with good, don't let the hood fold you. And as you walking through the valley of death, fear no evil, stay until your very last breath. We could never have rest till we pass this last test, so just dust the dirt off your shoulders. Cause our heritage was taken and our city was stolen. But the angels blew the trumpets and seals was broken. As the words of the ancient of days were spoken. Rain, fire, and hail in the plains of locusts. I know they got their eyes on us and they right to fear. Cause Jacob's back, the chosen and the rightful here. So come on, stand strong like a buffalo soldier. Keep on marching cause the fight's not over. One false foe strike blows like a cobra. The number of our homies like the sands of the shore. So they gotta come against us with the taste and the wars. But don't let your heart fail, keep your faith in the Lord. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Keep on marching on.
All praises. So we give all the glory to the Most High, the Holy Spirit. So we want to thank you for joining us on Feast dedication. Remarkable on what this feast is. Amazing on what this feast is. During probably one of the darkest times that I've been in this walk, I was at work, and the last song that we sang just started playing. About a soldier having to keep marching, keep moving, you know, and it was at a time where, you know, I wasn't quite sure about anything. But out of the blue, that song was playing on my phone, and you know, it got me to think, it got me to, you know, Father's watching, Father's looking out, Yeshia's watching, Yeshia's looking out.
Yes.
So we have to know, we have to understand that the power of Israel, the Holy One, the Redeemer of Israel, is always looking for us. He's always watching out for us if we take the time and just listen to him. Just take the time and heed what his word says. Yeshua says, you know, the Bible says, don't wait, don't want. You don't want the Savior to come at a time where you're not ready for him to come. And there's a time where I wasn't ready for him to come. If he was to come, then I would be stuck outside the wilderness. After everything that has been done, after 10 plus years doing this, ministry, casting out evil spirits, healing the sick, praying for, you know, someone who's almost dead, right? And it would have been for naught. We cannot be to a point where we're not listening to the Most High. We cannot be to a point where we're not listening to the Messiah. They're always speaking to us. There's not one person who can sit up there and say, I don't know the voice of the Father. I don't know the voice of the Messiah. I don't know the voice of the Holy Spirit. There's not one person who can say that. But there's a ton of us who say we don't listen. There's a ton of us who say, you know, we don't heed. So, stand strong. Whoever you are, you're with me. Stand strong. Be that soldier. It's funny because part of that song talks about the buffalo soldiers. A lot of people don't even know who they are. And that's a shame that our people don't know who the buffalo soldiers are. You know, it's a shame. You know, you think it's Bob Marley in a song. It's much more deeper than that. You think it's Graham Malak. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Graham Malak. Right? It's much more deeper than that. We're going to have a lesson. Not on the Buffalo Soldiers, but it's going to be part of a lesson about the Buffalo Soldiers. When we continue with our Hebrew Israelite awakening, so we know who we are. We need to know who these people are. We need to know who that young man is in Oklahoma in 1912, who they wrote a newsletter article about him knowing that he was Israel. We need to know this stuff. And I pray that, you know, you who are associated, who are tied with this ministry, it doesn't matter if we're in New York now, but it doesn't matter if you're in California, it doesn't matter if you're in Alaska. It doesn't matter if you're in, what message? That guy who messaged on the thing yesterday, he commented on our teaching, and he wrote it in Arabic. And I had to use Google Translator to translate it. Right? But it doesn't matter where you are. I think he's in Iran. It doesn't matter where you are. Right? As long as you're tired.
With the spirit.
With the spirit, we are tired. We're gonna see each other in the wilderness. Right? We're gonna see each other in the wilderness. It doesn't matter where you are, California, Florida, Maine, Canada, Iran, Iraq.
All right.
It doesn't
Come on.
matter where you are,
Come on. Yeah.
right? We're still tied and we're still connected. Men, you should have you should wear your leeches next week. I totally forgot that this is the feast dedication. We should have the leeches. So gentlemen, have the leeches next week. If you have them now, all praises. All right, we're gonna get to the lesson. Feast of dedication. Right? We're gonna understand feast of dedication, but first we're gonna knock out Kwanzaa. I mean, not Kwanzaa. We'll do that when Christmas time comes. We'll talk about Kwanzaa, December 25th. Again. Yeah. All right. We're going to talk about Hanukkah. That's what it was. Today is also the winter holy day. With the start of Feast of Dedication, today is also the winter holy day. Feast of Purim is our next feast. That's February 19th and the 20th. Both days we have a holy convocation. This is not the holy day where you exchange gifts. I know that certain people say it is, but it's not. You're following Hanukkah if you do that. Passover is March 9th. Have a holy convocation. Also, the spring holy day is March 9th. Right? Try to get with people on Passover. Our people traveled to Jerusalem when the Passover came. So, if you can, fine. If not, then because of financial restraints or whatever, then join us on the Passover. Feast of Unleavened Bread, March 10th through the 16th. That is where you remove all the leaven out of your house. We'll have more updates on Feast of Unleavened Bread as we get closer to it. Feast of First Fruits. I'm still doing research on that, but the Feast of First Fruits, I do not believe we do it in May. I think that it should be a little closer than that. Because May is Pentecost. And I know that people teach Pentecost and First Fruits together, but there's some scriptures in Leviticus 23rd chapter that kind of contradicts it. So I'm still trying to look into that as well. But let's talk about Hanukkah. So there's no secret how pagan holidays are, mixed with biblical Bible things to get them accepted by the people. So what we're going to do here is we're going to embrace the undisputed truth. We're not going to sugarcoat it in any way, shape, or form. Easter, Christmas are both unidentifiable proof that this highly successful trend of mixing in pagan idolatry with the Bible still is around today. And you have to ask yourself about Hanukkah. Is it possible that Hanukkah escaped this and Hanukkah is real, or is Hanukkah part of Christmas? Is Hanukkah part of Easter? For those of you who fear the Lord, you want to learn about the truth in all matters, and it don't matter what the truth is. You want to know about what the truth is, and so that you can respond, making godly changes in your life. To denounce Christmas is not a satanic, it's not anything evil. To denounce Christmas is a godly change of life. To denounce Easter is a godly change in your life. To sit there and say, I'm not going to eat another piece of swine is a God change in your life.
That's right.
It's not that, your family members will sit there and tell you, well, what's wrong with you? What's going on with you? Why are you dressing funny? Why are you talking funny? Why are you not celebrating what Grandmama celebrated? Why are you celebrating what Grandpapa, he celebrated? He started this tradition. Great-great-grandpa started this tradition. And you are denouncing our forefathers, or if you're deep-rooted in that ancestral African culture, you're denouncing our forefathers. And you just quote the Bible.
It was said to me. Yeah.
You quote them the scriptures and traditions of men. Right? And then they tell you, wait, that don't have, what does that have to do with this? Right? They quote you the scripture on traditions of men. Right? A lot of people like to turn a deaf ear to it. You know, a lot of people, when I was working, and I would tell people, you know, that tree that you got on your desk is in the Bible. Yeah, it is. Oh, that's great and wonderful. Hey, why don't you read it? Read Jeremiah 10. That tree is in the Bible. And then, of course, when you start bringing up scriptures, no, that's okay. That's all right. No. They rather respond to the truth. People would rather deal with the masses and follow the masses than follow the Most High. They rather than respond to the truth, usually, they display horrible reaction as if you just slaughtered their grandmama. Let's read Galatians 4:16. As if you slaughtered their grandmama.
Well, you know, growing up and how our grandparents and everything celebrated December 25th, like my grandmother, she would like repaint the whole house, like the front room area. She would go and buy paint. She always had a live tree. This tree was so huge, I was allergic to the tree. By the way, I should have been something. But she would get a live pine tree. It would be so big that we would have to cut it down some because it would be like to the ceiling, to the roof. And I remember when we wasn't even Christians, and I was like, remember I told you, where does it say in the Bible that December 25th is our Lord and Savior's birthday? And we started researching it, and we couldn't find it. Well, we did find out that it was Khalid.
Whose birthday it was.
Yeah, and I was so disappointed because the year before that, I was on the event committee with the church. So I was in the church selling dinners to make money for the December 25th. I decorated the church. I went grocery shopping. I was in charge of cooking the dinner, the December 25th dinner for the church. I had to repent from all that. Do you know one year I even made pork ribs for the church? But I didn't know. The pastor was not going through the Bible telling me, you're not supposed to eat pork. You're not supposed to do this. So, in fact, when he got there and the dinner was not ready at 6 o'clock, he started having people coming into the back of the church asking me, where's the dinner? When he put pressure on me like I was his wife making him dinner. It was a stressful time. It was a mess.
That's what it is.
It was one big mess. And then when I came into the truth, and I was telling my auntie, I called her and I said, yo, we should be doing December 25th. So my grandmother raised me, so I called her Mom. And she was like, Mama always did December 25th. Like, you crazy. We always, did December 25th. But my daughter and I was in a store yesterday, and they were playing the Christmas carols. And I told her, I said, do you feel that? We had to denounce that because even though it may be saying you think the words are happy, but there's a certain spirit of depression that's behind that stuff. Like if you can discern spirits, even though it's saying like the mistletoe and all this, but if you really discern spirit, if you're spiritual in any kind of way, you can feel that there's a spirit of depression behind that stuff. No matter what the words are saying, there's a spirit of depression. That's why people commit suicide. That's why people do, I don't know if it was last December 25th or the year before that, it was this Judah guy. He was on live stream. He was like happy with his family. He was like, yeah, my family is there. And then a couple of days later, he killed his wife and kids. It's depression comes with that.
Yeah, it's called the holiday spirit. Before we get to the scripture, I want to say peace to the 12 tribes that are scattered throughout the 4 corners of the earth. I want to say shalom to those who are not of the blood lineage of Israel, but they follow the law, statutes, and commandments. So they have the surname of Israel. This is Feast of Dedication. This is a celebratory feast. Right? All right, this is a celebratory feast. If you have questions, feel free to put your questions and comments, questions or comments on the chat about the Feast of Dedication or any feast, any holy day.
We do have a question already.
Any holy day, right? Put your questions on the chat and we will discuss those questions. All right, before we get to the scripture, what's the question?
The first question, someone said, what y'all cooking for the feast? It was my gas. It wasn't him this time.
What we are cooking for the feast? Well, if you were here, you probably would know. Really? What's the next question?
This guy is a part. He just said, Elder, you're right. People rather follow the masses. Also, that's why our families stay in these Christian churches, because they celebrate all these pagan holidays and they feel justified because the church does it. It serves wine at their potluck. So I just got through saying it. One day I had some barbecue ribs too. They feel it's okay because the house of God says it's okay. Total deception. And most of the time, people just love their lust for sin.
Right, exactly. As far as what we're serving, it's all clean. Okay?
I don't think you know. You just ready for your plate.
Right.
He don't know, y'all. He just ready for the plate.
Yeah, I just know it's something, too, or something. All right, so, you're right. They don't discern it. And if you do bring it to them to discern it, they're gonna look at you like you just killed their mother. Right? And you still got the blood on your face, excuse me. All right, so questions or comments, feel free to put them on the chat. We will respond to both questions and comments, all right? I'm just looking outside because it was snowing, but I don't think it is so long.
No, not anymore.
Let's get the scripture before we talk about the brief history of this wonderful season. Let's read Galatians 4, right?
Galatians chapter 4, verse 16. Am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth?
Am I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Now, I wasn't going to do it this year, but we are going to do it this year. The Shabbat before December 25th, I think it's like the 20th, we're going to have the teaching on December 25th. We're going to revisit that. Each time one of these holidays come up, we always have a teaching. And we always bring something new to the teaching. So we're going to do that, I think it's December 20th, right before, or 19th or something like that. But we're going to do that just for our Christians. Okay? Let's talk about a brief history about this season. It's called the winter solstice. And the winter solstice is pretty much the longest day of the year. It's the longest night and the shortest day of the year. Solstice comes from two words, sol, meaning sun, and sister, which means to stand still. The winter solstice is the beginning of the winter season. And it's the birth of what they call the new solar year. The birth marks a celebration of lights, right? A celebration of lights. And it's the rebirth of the sun relighting the earth and the other planets. In Europe, the solstice was known as Yule. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And it's derived from a Norse word meaning jewel, meaning wheel. So the winter festival is almost as bad as Christmas. It's the religion, and it's in Judaism and in Christianity. The winter solstice played host to a lot of pagan beliefs. Rome dominated the earth a long time ago, and Israel was under bondage under Rome. But it goes back further than Rome. Ancient Egypt observed the dead and burial of their god Orisis. And guess what that was? It was on December 21st. Right? And we're going to bring a lot of this out when we talk on December 25th. We don't want to bring out too much of everything. During the Roman Empire, which we know was from 63 BC to 313 AD or something like that, two festivals covered a 7-day week from December 17th to December 23rd. One was called Saturnalia, and the other one was Ophalia. Saturnalia was the Saturn god of agriculture. Ophalia was the goddess of plenty, right? So you had these two festivals, and then on December 25th, there was a third festival called the birthday of the conquering sun, S-U-N. And that was the birth of these pagan gods, December 25th. And then they produced men mortals like Hercules or Perseus or Apollo, god men. Right? That's where they come from.
And how does it mean on it?
I don't know.
Muscle.
Oh,
Isn't it?
they're supposed to be like real muscular,
symbols.
fit, and all that other stuff. Right? Go ahead.
So we need to be careful that we do not come in covenant with these things. Because I remember a couple of years back, I had went to Sonic, and they have this thing where you can get, they have a winter solstice. Is it winter solstice?
Solstice.
So, yeah, and during that time, the drinks are like half off and stuff like that. You get different discounts, but also, isn't that also what they celebrate, like with orgies and like the spirit of
Right.
lust? So
So we're
you,
gonna get into that when we talk about December 25th.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to let people know that when you go to these different restaurants and they have like the, the different solstices where you have discounts and stuff like that, don't participate in stuff like that because you're coming in covenant with that spirit.
Yeah, they have winter harvest sales and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Don't come and cover with that, all right? For Hanukkah is also known as the Feast of Lights or the Feast of Dedication, believe it or not. And it was a story that wasn't even included in the Bible, but there is a couple of scriptures that we're gonna go over tonight that has the Feast of Dedication in the Bible. You have to also do a little study in on it. It was just a minor festival, and it grown since Christianity. It boomed since Christianity. The real backbone of the Feast of Dedication is the Syrian king that came and desecrated the temple to a pagan deity. And guess when that happened? December 25th. Okay, that's when Antiochus, who changed his name because he thought he was God on earth, changed his name and slaughtered pigs and everything in our temple. That was on December 25th. So guess what you're doing if you have ham on your table on December 25th? You're doing the same thing that Antiochus did, right? So you had Judah, Jonathan, Judah. You had Judah, who's Maccabee, right? And he took control. Judas took control of the temple.
And that, I know we read about the Maccabees and the Apocrypha, but what is the other book we were reading?
Josephus.
Josephus.
We got that too.
The whole story, make sure you read it. It is so much deeper
Right.
than what we just read in the Apocrypha.
Right.
Read the whole story, I'm telling you. It is so encouraging. It will encourage you in this walk to
Right.
stay strong.
Yes. So, and we're going to get a couple of excerpts out of Josephus. So there's similarities between Hanukkah and Christmas. The first similarity is that it both occurs on they both occur around the winter solstice. Okay, believe it or not, the Christmas, it's not just one day, it's 8 days. A lot of people don't even know that. But Christmas and Hanukkah cover 8 days. They both use lights as a major thing. You probably walk around your neighborhood now, and people have lights all over the place, right? There's a reason for that. But we're not going to get into that until December 25th. They both use gifts as part of the celebration.
With your family.
Right. Hanukkah uses Judas Maccabee, and Christians use Santa.
Oh, no.
Even though the Jewish people, they're not telling what really this day is about. Right? They both symbolize the birth or rebirth of a son or a S-U-N. And they both celebrate the sun god. It's not common knowledge, but the account of the flame that burned for 8 days, which is not mentioned in the Apocrypha, but it's mentioned in the Josephus. Josephus refers to Hanukkah as the Feast of Lights. He also writes that Hanukkah assumed a completely different character during the first century after Yeshua came. And it wasn't until about 200 AD that there was a Jewish writer, and there was a book called the Gemara. And this book put examples of origins of lights and how Hanukkah had become transformed into a festival of lights through their own book. So the story continues with this container of oil, right? And it was enough only for one day, but somehow miraculously, this oil burned for 8 days. And that's where you get the lights from. That's where the lights come from, which is not true. There's a quote by a Jewish historian named Hyman Shaws, and he says this: the very fact that legends were created in an effort to connect the festival of Hanukkah with the festival of lights arouses suspicion. Had this connection existed from the beginning, from the time that Hanukkah became a festival, there would have been no need to invent tales about them. This is coming from one of their very own historians. He also says all these facts calls for explanations, and in accordance with what we know of the customs, there can be but one explanation, that the Hanukkah lights originally had nothing to do with dedication. Nothing to do with it. He has one more quote, and then we're going to get to the 8 candles. Why the Hanukkah lights became to play an important role in the generation before the destruction of the Second Temple, we cannot be sure. Satan. Let's go to Leviticus 14:10. Hold that, get 1 Samuel 16:10. Let's talk about the number 8 for a second. Leviticus 14:10, 1 Samuel 16:10. Now, how many people were saved at the time of the flood? 8. How many days were you the leprosy for leprosy was cleansed? 8.
I think she guessed that one.
Right? How many sons did Jesse have? 8. Who was the 8? David. right? Let's read Leviticus 14:10 and then 1 Samuel 16:10. Let's read that.
Leviticus chapter 14, verse 10. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 he lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, and 3 deals of fine flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil.
Okay? 8, say 1 Samuel 16:10.
1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 10. Again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. And Samuel said unto Jesse, the Lord hath not chosen thee.
Right. The Lord has not chosen these. So yes, the number 8 does fit symbolism, which means new beginnings. And probably the most accurate reason for 8 days of Hanukkah was the dedication of Solomon's temple during the Feast of Tabernacles, which was 8 days, which we'll show you that later on in Scripture. Now, not forgetting that Israel was controlled by the Roman Empire, one of the actual sources of the candle, the Festival of Lights, traced back to pagan Rome. And before the Hanukkah, or before what happened with the Apocrypha. In addition to the sun god lighting 8 planets, there's also a winter festival practiced by the followers of the goddess Ceres, or the goddess of Proserpina. Okay? So honoring the rededication of the Most High Temple would be a good thing, but it appears that Hanukkah blended in something else. And the Jewish historians even blast it out. They even call it out. That's why I did all of it. But the Jewish historians, because whenever you are a Jewish person and you start calling out your brethren, that's a death sentence. Now see, right now, if some schmoly, curly head, black wearing with big old top, disgusting person sat there and said, I'm anti-Semitic right now. I'm teaching anti-Semitism, right? But not realizing that, wait a minute, you're not even from Shem. You're from Yafet. So you can't sit here and say that I'm teaching anti-Semitism. Carsway. We'll get into that next week, won't we? Okay, while Hanukkah and Christmas, which is the winter festival, poses a lot of too many unusual similarities to overlook. They're both the same. Winter festival, it's the same thing. A lot of people say, well, you know what, I don't do Christmas, I don't do Hanukkah, I don't do Kwanzaa, we just have a winter festival. That's what a lot of churches use. We just have a winter festival. We don't put a tree up, we just have a winter festival. Do you exchange gifts? Oh, yeah, we can still exchange
Oh, we do it for the kids.
We do it for the children. You're still doing it. You're still doing it. Let's get to the dedication. Let's start it from the beginning. How to observe the dedication, also known as the Feast of Lights. It's a holy day, kept on the first Shabbat on the 10th day of the month, 8 days, observed with joy and happiness. You can cook on the first and last day. No gift giving, because this is not a substitute for Christmas. Okay? I know certain Israelite groups, and I'm not going to call out their initials, but certain Israelite groups use dedication to exchange gifts. And they use Purim to exchange gifts. That's not biblical. It's wrong. We're going to start at Ezra, the first chapter. When the Medes and the Persians overthrew Babylon, Cyrus issued an edict in 538 BC, allowing Judah to return and build and rebuild the temple. So we're going to go first Ezra, I'm sorry, not first Ezra. We're going to go Ezra 1, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5, 1 through 6. Not Ezra in the Bible, in the Apocrypha, but Ezra in the Bible. Ezra 1, 1 through 6. All right, let's read it.
Ezra chapter 1, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia,
Mm-hmm.
that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled.
Might be fulfilled, the word of the Lord from Jeremiah. Remember, Jeremiah prophesied that Israel was going to be in captivity for 70 years. Right? Continue.
The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia,
The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus the king in Persia. The Lord was a Gentile king. Right? Keep going.
that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, Thus said Cyrus, king of Persia,
Mm-hmm.
the Lord power of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah.
Mm-hmm.
Who is there among you of all his people? His power be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem,
Mm-hmm.
which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord power of Israel. He is the power, which is in Jerusalem.
Verse 4.
And whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourneth, let the men of his place help him with silver, and with gold, and with goods, and with beasts, beside the freewill offering for the house of the Most High that is in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 5. Then rose up the chief of the fathers of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests, and the Levites, with all them whose spirit the Most High had raised, to go up to build the house of the Lord which is in Jerusalem.
Verse 6.
And all they that were about them strengthened their hands with vessels of silver, with gold, with goods, with beasts, and with precious things, beside all that was willingly offered.
Right. All right. So Cyrus made an edict, and Cyrus said, "Okay, the spirit of the Lord came on Cyrus." And Cyrus said, "You know what? We have to. I have to make an edict so that now Israel can return back to Jerusalem," which was prophesied by Jeremiah. All right. But only 50,000 people returned back to Israel. Out of all the people that went into captivity, only 50,000 returned back. So we're going to go and see that in Ezra chapter 2, verse 64 and 65. Ezra 2, 64 and 65. All right, let's read that.
Ezra chapter 2, verse 64. The whole congregation together was 40,002,303 score,
Mm-hmm.
beside their servants and their maids, of whom there were 7,337. And there were among them 200 singing men and singing women.
Not that many people went back. Because many preferred to stay in Babylon. Because they had adopted their religion, their law. Kind of reminds you of Christianity in America. You were brought over on slave ships, captive. And there was a time where they were thinking about sending people back from the Americas to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, that we'll talk about that more when we talk about the transatlantic slave trade. As far as here, a lot of people preferred Babylon. A lot of our people stayed in Babylon. They accepted the religion. They accepted the laws of Babylon. A lot of our people stayed behind. Only 50,000 left. So, where is the scripture where it talks specifically about dedication? We're going to go to John, the 10th chapter. Now, if you study your Bible, you'll understand, and we're going to get to Daniel in a moment. But if you study your Bible and understand, you know that the Feast of Dedication was prophesied with Daniel. And we're going to show that, and we're going to get to the Maccabees. We're going to get very heavily into the Apocrypha today. Right? Let's read John 10, and we're going to read verses 22 and 23.
Go ahead. John chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem the feast of dedication. and it was winter.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeshua walked in the temple in Solomon's porch.
All right, so Yeshua was going to the synagogue on the Feast of Dedication to teach, right? Now, let's get an understanding on something, because a lot of groups had dedication last week. Some groups are having it next week. Because of our calendar being, and no one really knows the specific day on the holy days. The reason being is because this calendar has been hijacked. There's been so many changes to the calendar over the years that we can try to pinpoint as close as possible. So if a group is celebrating dedication last week, don't frown on them. If a group is celebrating it next week, don't frown, as long as they're celebrating it. And they're celebrating it the correct way. We don't know exactly when to do dedication because this calendar has been jacked up by the Romans. The Gregorian, the Julian, I forget what the other calendar is. But they have changed the calendar so much that we can only try to guess when it is. But as long as you're doing what you are supposed to be doing on the day, now listen, dedication should not be in January. Let's not be ignorant. Dedication should not be in November. Let's not be ignorant. Right? But as long as you're doing it as close as possible. Right? A lot of people, Purim, they do it on the Shabbat. That's fine. Right? That's fine. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to do. We're going to go first Maccabees 4. There's a reason why this feast is not ordained by the Most High. It's not ordained by the Most High because the Feast of Dedication has zero to do with your salvation. Zero. We're celebrating, that's just like Purim, has nothing to do with your salvation. But unleavened bread does. The Passover does. The first fruits does. Trumpets do. Atonement does. Tabernacles do. They have everything to do with your salvation. That's why it's never ordained by the Most High. But we still celebrate it because of the victory. You have to understand and know that Greece was a world power, a dominant world power. And for a group such as the Maccabees to come together, and let's understand something. The Maccabees were not Judah. They were Levi. So there was another hurdle that they had to deal with.
They had to.
There was another hurdle that they had to deal with. They weren't Judah. So they shouldn't have been leading anything. There's something to think about. First Maccabees chapter 4, we're going to start at verse 46. 46 to 55. First Maccabees 4, verse 46. If you are new to this ministry, then we read out of the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha, could you open up, please? The Apocrypha, those are books that were pulled out of the Bible, out of the original 1611, because the Roman Catholic Church deemed that this book was not canon.
I don't know if they can see it. It's 14 books.
All right? So if you're new to this ministry, those that have been in this ministry, you know about the Apocrypha. Okay? A lot of good information, which we're going to get into now. First Maccabees 4, 46.
First Maccabees chapter 4, verse 46. And laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to shew what should be done with them. Then they took whole stones according to the law, and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary, and the things that were within the temple, and hollowed the courts. They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick, and the altar of burnt offerings, and of incense, and the table. Verse 50. And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they might give light in the temple.
That they might give light. Go ahead.
Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table, and spread out the veils, and finished all the work which they had begun to make. Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. Look, at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it, even in that was it dedicated with songs and sitarns and harps and cymbals.
55.
Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the power of heaven, who had given them good success.
And giving them good success. All right. So all the questions about the feast, all the questions about this feast, we need to start to examine this. Where did this start? Where did it originate? Right? And it did not originate in the Apocrypha. It originated in the Bible. So we're going to go to Daniel, the 8th chapter. And let's see the beginning of the Feast of Dedication. Last year when we taught this, we primarily focused on the woman and the 3-year-old and her 6 sons during dedication. Okay, we're not going to focus on that this week, this year. Daniel 8, and we're going to start at verse 8. We're going to read one verse. Well, we're going to read more than one verse. So we're going to start at Daniel 8 and 8. Okay, let's read that.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven.
All right, so the he-goat was Alexander the Greek. And the four notable ones were General Cassander, who was given Macedonia, General Lysimachus, who was given Asia Minor, or modern-day Turkey, General Seculus, who was given Syria, that's who we're gonna focus on, and then General Ptolemy, who was given Egypt. Those were the 4 generals when Alexander the Greek died over whatever he died of, something sick and perverted probably, because he was dealing with young men. So when he died, then these 4 generals came up. And the Bible predicted this. Remember, Daniel was not around when the Greeks took over the world. Daniel was long dead by that time. Daniel was still in Babylonian and Persian captivity. Right? And Daniel died during the Persian captivity. So Daniel was not around during the Greek captivity. He didn't see this. He was giving a prophecy. Let's read verse 9.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great, toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land.
Right. Who is this little horn? Out of Seculus came his son Antiochus. And Antiochus became great, and he extended the kingdom to Egypt. Antiochus Epiphanes, the secular king who reigned from 175 BC until 164 BC. And he was known for his brutality among the Hebrews. A notable story in Maccabees is the story of the woman who had 6 sons, right? And they were being tortured. And then the king, Antiochus, decided that the little boy who was just 3 years old, when he started quoting scriptures to him and started telling him what he's not going to do, killed him worse than his 6 sons, then killed the mother. Before then, he made one of the high priests and tried to tell the high priest to, if you pretend that you're eating pork. You don't even have to eat it. Just pretend that you're eating it. Just pretend that you're eating it. And he said no, and he killed him, yes.
Is this story also in the Josephus?
Yes. It's much more detailed than the Josephus stuff, right? Antiochus went as far as he invaded Jerusalem. He defiled the temple. He replaced everything with the image of Zeus inside the temple and offered pigs. Hold that thought about Zeus for a second. Then the Hebrews eventually recaptured Jerusalem and immediately started to cleanse the temple. Let's skip over to Daniel 11, and we're going to read verse 5. Hold that thought on Zeus for a second. Daniel 11 and verse 5. And let's read that.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 5. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion.
That is talking about Antiochus. How do we know? Let's go to 1 Maccabees 1 and 16. The king was secular. The prince was Antiochus. And Antiochus did far more than secular ever did. Let's go 1 Maccabees 1 and 16. And let's read that.
1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 16. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms.
That he might have the dominion over 2 realms. Egypt, Israel. Egypt and Israel. Let's stay in 1 Maccabees, and we're going to go over to chapter 6. We're showing these precepts from Daniel 11 and 5, right? 1 Maccabees 6, and we're going to read verses 1 through 4. Okay, let's read.
1 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 1. About that time, King Antiochus, traveling through the high countries, heard say that Elymaeus in the country of Persia was a city greatly renowned for riches, silver, and gold, and that there was in it a very rich temple, wherein was coverings of gold, and breastplates, and shields, which Alexander the son of Philip, the Macedonian king, who reigned first among the Grecians, had left there. Wherefore he came and sought to take the city, and to spoil it, but he was not able, because they of the city, having had warning thereof, rose up against him in battle. So he fled and departed thence with great heaviness, and returned to Babylon.
All right, so he did that, which is he went towards Iran, and then he comes to Jerusalem, Israel. Let's go back over to Daniel 8. And we're going to read verse 10. Let's read.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 10. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them.
All right, so now you have to answer your question. Who are the host of heaven? Who is that? because from what it looks like, they were almost destroyed. So you have the precept upon precept, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, right? To discern this word. Let's go to Exodus, the 12th chapter. Exodus 12, and we're going to read one verse, verse 41. So now you can see who are the host of heaven. Go ahead.
Exodus chapter 12, verse 41. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt.
Host of the Lord went out of the land of Egypt. That was Israel, right? So in Daniel, it says that the host of heaven will be cast down, some of the host and some of the stars to the ground, and they will be stamped on, right? Antiochus cast many Israelites to the ground in war, stopped them by indoctrinating them with all his philosophies. And we're going to see that in the Apocrypha. But let's go back to Daniel 8, and let's read verse 11. Okay, let's read that. Daniel 8 and 11.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 11. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. And by him the daily sacrifice was taken away. And the place of his sanctuary was cast down.
See that? That's talking about, and that's Antiochus. Daniel, the 8th chapter, is the start of the dedication. He magnified himself. And we're going to show you that in the Apocrypha. And we're going to show you the daily sacrifice was taken away. We're going to show you that in the Apocrypha. Antiochus declared himself to be Lord and ended all the daily sacrifices, and the temple and the sanctuary was cast down, and the temple was defiled. Let's go to 1 Maccabees 1, 44 to 47. Keep your markers on Daniel 8, because we're going to go back. Keep your Bibles on Daniel 8. So we're going to discern Daniel 8 with using the Apocrypha. First Maccabees chapter 1, 44 to 47. Let's see what Daniel 8 and 11 means. Okay, let's read that.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 44. For the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings,
and
sacrifices,
forbid the sacrifices,
and drink offerings,
forbid the drink offerings.
in the temple,
Go ahead.
and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
Don't do Sabbaths, don't do the holy days. This is going to come back around again, just to let you all know. It's going to come back around again. Next verse.
Verse 46. And pollute the sanctuary and holy people.
Pollute the sanctuary, the holy people. 47.
Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
See, they know about the swine's flesh because they know about Leviticus the 11th chapter. They know how we feel about those who are following the correct way, know what we feel about pork.
Do you know in the grocery store now, and I've had almost bought it, they have, and it says beef in big letters, and then in tiny letters it says pork. So they're mixing pork with beef but they got like beef in big letters, and then at the bottom it says pork. But it's real small, so it's easy to miss it.
Be careful.
And it's in the beef aisle too, because I went to get some ground beef, and I picked it up, and one of the girls was like, abroad, wait a minute, it's pork in there, and I'm like, where? And we started reading it, but it's in the same roll as ground beef, you can't tell. And then if you get the already made patties, it has pork mixed in with that as well, so you can't tell.
You gotta be careful.
Yeah, so
Right.
they're mixing it.
Alright, set up groves, altars, that's all they did. Right, let's go back to Daniel 8, and let's read verse 12.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 12. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. And it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered.
Alright, so the host that was given to Antiochus were disobedient Israelites, and they rebelled against the Most High's laws for sacrifice, for mercy, by reason of their desire to sin and throw away the truth. So we had some bad seeds, a lot of bad seeds in Israel. A lot of bad seeds in Israel. They sided with Antiochus. Let's go over to Psalms 119. Psalms 119. We're going to read verses 150 and 151. Okay, let's read.
Psalm 119, verse 150. They draw nigh that follow after mischief. They are far from thy law. Thou art near, O Lord, and all thy commandments are true.
So they draw nigh that follow after mischief, far from the law. So they were practicing sin and they were prospering in sin. That's what Daniel 8 and 12 was saying. That they prospered in sin and they practiced sin. These are Israelites. Let's go back to Daniel 8, and we're going to read verse 13.
So do you think they stopped doing what the Most High had told them what to do because were they afraid of the king?
No, they were just in rebellion. They weren't afraid of him. They were just in rebellion. It was in them all along.
Not to do it.
Right. So it was in them all along. Daniel 8 and 13.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 13. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto the certain saint, which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice?
How long is this going to happen? Go ahead, continue.
And the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot.
This is talking about the dedication. And if you didn't have the Apocrypha, you wouldn't know what this is talking about. You wouldn't know what this is talking about. That's why the Apocrypha is so important. Because these few verses in Daniel 8 is the beginning of the Feast of Dedication. Right? So, what is the transgression of desolation? Right? That should be a question. What is that transgression of desolation? Where can I get information about this transgression of desolation? Let's go to 1 Maccabees 1, 37 and 38. And let's see what the transgression of desolation is. 1 Maccabees 1, 37 and 38. Remember, keep your markers in Daniel 8. because we're breaking down Daniel 8. All right, let's read.
First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 37. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary, and defiled it, and so much that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her.
That is the transgression of desolation. Because of that sin, Jerusalem was now home to strangers. And it still is home to strangers today, if you want to ask that question. Right? All right, let's get back to Daniel 8. Daniel 8, and we're going to read the next verse, verse 14.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 14. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed.
2,300 days is the historic abomination of desolation, which first occurred 171 BC. Then the sanctuary shall be clean and restored. So that is the start of the Feast of Dedication. But it doesn't stop with Daniel 8. We're going to go over to Daniel 11. And we're going to start at verse 31. Daniel 8 and 31.
Luke 11.
No, I'm sorry, Daniel 11 and 31. Okay, let's read that.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 31. And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate.
They shall stand on Antiochus' part, and the Greeks pollute the Most High's sanctuary. They try to end the Most High's laws, sacrifice pigs on the altar, and make those that fear the Most High run away. Let's read verse 32.
Verse 32. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their power shall be strong and do exploits.
So the people that know the Most High power began with the Levite, Matthias. Or Matthias. I think it's Matthias. Matthias. I think that's how it's pronounced. Judas and his people believed that the power of Israel was the one power. He loved his people, Israel, and he would provide for them. Right? It was not well. Matthias and his sons were Levites. They were not of Judah. They were not of David. The Maccabean priest kings would have ruled in Jerusalem, but the people knew that the Most High had promised a Messiah to come from the house of David. So when the Romans took over, this was 63 BC, when the Romans took over from the Maccabee rulers, the Israelites hoped for that promised Messiah, which we all know is the Messiah. Huh? So Matthias and the Maccabees, they were not Judah, they were Levites. So that was a problem. A very small problem, because that soul is fixed. We're going to go to the complete works of Josephus. We're going to go to Antiquity of the Jews. If you are an Israelite, if you really want to study, if you want to really get down in your studies, Book of Josephus is a wonderful tool. Antiquity of the Jews, chapter 6, and we're going to read page 389. Antiquities of the Jews, chapter 6, verse 389. This is in Josephus, his complete works. Read that, please.
Josephus, the Antiquities of the Jews, page 389. How upon Antiochus' prohibition to the Jews to make use of the laws of their country, Mattathias, the son of Asamoneus, alone despised the king and overcame the generals of Antiochus' army, as also concerning the death of Mattathias and the succession of Judas. Now at this time there was one whose name was Mattathias, who dwelt in Modin, the son of John, the son of Simeon, the son of Asamoneus, a priest of the order of Joarib, and a citizen of Jerusalem. He had 5 sons, John, who was called Gaius, and Simon, who was called Matthew, and Judas, who was called Maccabeus, and Eleazar, who was called Orah, and Jonathan, who was called Alphas. Now this Mattathias lamented to his children the sad state of their affairs, and the ravage made in the city, and the plundering of the temple, and the calamities the multitude were under. And he told them that it was better for them to die for the laws of their country than to live so ingloriously as they then did.
So he's saying that it's better to die as a true Israelite than to live in the laws of Antiochus, right? These 5 sons, if you read in the book of Josephus, they are something else. They are, and I'm saying are like they're still alive. They're in Abraham's bosom right now. I can guarantee you that with each and every one of them. They did some stuff and they caused issues and problems to the point where the Greeks were kind of afraid of Judas. Whenever they heard the name Judas Maccabee, they were, oh, no. They were afraid of him. Right? But, you know, Israel, there's always a traitor. We're going to go to 1 Maccabees, chapter 2. Now, we're going to be in chapter 2 for quite a while before we go back to Daniel 11. 1 Maccabees, chapter 2. We're going to read verses 19 to 30. First Maccabees 2, 19 to 30. Let's read.
First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 19. Then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our father.
You have to listen to what Matthias is saying, right? He's talking, he's speaking truth. Galatians 4:16 is what he's speaking. Verse 21.
The Most High forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left.
Go ahead.
Now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar, which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment.
Verse 24.
Which things when Mattathias saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled. Neither could he forbear to shew his anger according to the judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar.
So as Matthias is speaking, this fool, because that's what he was, came and was about to offer a pagan offering in front of Matthias. And after Matthias just said, right in verse, 19? Oh no, he said in verse 22, we will not hearken to the king's words. So I guess this person thought, you know what, whatever. They ain't gonna kill me. Matthias, he was inflamed with zeal. That's a good way to say he was ticked off. His reins trembled. Not his reins. He didn't have reins like you ride a horse. I don't think that's what it meant. But his insides trembled. And he could not contain his anger anymore. He just went off on this man and killed him. 25.
Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time.
He started to kill people now. Go ahead.
And the altar he pulled down.
Come on.
Thus dealt he zealously for the law of the Most High, like as Phinehas did unto Zambri, the son of Salome.
If you don't know who Phinehas was, he's the one I was talking about earlier, when the king said, you know what, hey, why don't you just pretend like we do you for? Just do your mouth like this, and say what you did. You want something.
You don't lie.
You don't have to defile yourself. Right? And boy, did he let him have it. And unfortunately, the king killed him. Not unfortunately, fortunately, the king killed him.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Because he's in Abraham's bosom now too. Right? Over here. Yeah. All right, verse 27.
And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, Whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me. So he and his sons fled into the mountains, and left all that ever they had in the city.
Left all they had in the city. I'm going to tell you something. You got to read about his sons. You got to read about his sons. If you don't have a Josephus, guess what? It's a PDF online for free. You got to read about his sons. They are something else. All 5 of them. Not one of them went astray. All 5 of them. Right? Superhero, or one of them. Find a superhero, there you go. Verse 29, right? 29.
Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them.
Next verse. Oh wait, that's 30. All right, so let's skip down to verse 42. And we're going to read 42 to 47. That's not what it looks like. 42 to 47. You all know that they whitewashed Josephus also. They say that he was a Roman historian, but he was not a Roman historian. There's facts that he was Israel. Okay? But of course, if somebody has any knowledge or understanding, they're going to whitewash him too. Now, with Socrates, yeah, that's different. He wasn't Israel. Plato, he was not Israel, no. Josephus was, and there's a couple others whom we haven't mentioned yet, but we will, real soon, that they whitewashed, made them become Roman historians or Jewish historians rather than their Israel. All right, we're going to skip down to verse 42 and read through 47. Go ahead.
First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 42. Then came there unto him a company of Assyrians, who were mighty men of Israel, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law. Also all they that fled from persecution joined themselves unto them, and were a stay unto them.
Go ahead.
So they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger.
Hold there for a second, right? They joined forces, and the people who were sinning, they smoked them while they were angry, so they killed them. I don't see nothing wrong with that. You want to sit up there and you want to desecrate the temple, Israel? You gotta go. Keep going.
And wicked men in their anger, in their wrath.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest fled to the heathen for supper. Then Mattathias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altar. And what children soever they found within the coast of Israel uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly.
Mm-hmm.
They pursued also after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hand.
And work prospered in their hand. What they did was smoke sinful men, pull down pagan altars, circumcise all children. They were found in the uncircumcised and recovered the book of the law from which when the Greeks stole it from us. But they did a little more than that. Let's hold that and let's go back to Daniel 11. And we're going to read verses 33 and 34. Daniel 11, 33 and 34. All right, let's read it.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 33. And they that understand among the people shall instruct me, yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, by captivity, and by spoil many days.
Mm-hmm.
Now when they shall fall, they shall be hoping with a little help. But many shall cleave to them with flattery.
Many shall cleave to them with flatteries. When Matthias died, Israel was given help with his son Judas, who was also called Maccabee, and Maccabee means hammer, and Judas was a hammer. If you think Matthias was something, oh, Judas was 10 times his father. Right? The Most High used Judas to clean the sanctuary, and that was prophesied in Daniel 8:14. Right? Let's read the next verse, Daniel 11:35.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 35. And some of them of understanding shall fall to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the time of the end. Because it is yet for a time appointed.
It is yet for a time appointed. Right? So Judas Maccabee, unfortunately, he died in battle, like all the rest of his brothers. Right? So let's continue on. Read verse 36.
And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself, and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the power of power, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done.
That's right. So Antiochus still continued to do his will and magnify himself above every god. So he took the name of Epiphanes, meaning God on earth. Let's get the Bible Atlas. Yeah, of course. Right? Let's get the Bible Atlas, page 232 to 234.
That's how they said.
Right.
The 40th removed cousin.
The Bible Atlas, go ahead.
The Bible Atlas, page 232, Maccabean Revolt. Several political and religious circumstances affected Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes, God manifest.
See that? God manifest. He called himself a God on earth. Just like Xerxes thought he was a god on earth. Continue.
He desired to rid the world of any non-Hellen, non-conformist faith.
When it says Hellen, those are Greeks. Anyone who did not follow the Greek religion or the Greek religions, they were cast away. Go ahead.
Judaism being a prime target. The Seleucids desired to spread and consolidate Hellenism, and Judah was an enclave of religious turbulence requiring forceful Hellenization. In 174 BC, Antiochus deposed the high priest Onias, replacing him with one of his brothers, known as Jason.
See, and they did that. They did that then, and they did it. They did it a second time also. That's how you got the Pharisees. That's how the Pharisees came into power, and that's how the Herods came into power. Someone put them in power. Go ahead.
This new high priest commenced building a gymnasium, an icon of Hellenization.
Building a gymnasium, right? What was that going to do? Go ahead.
People began to wear Greek dress and the broad-brimmed hat known as the Patassos, which was the headgear of Hermes, the god of the gymnasium.
The little wreath things, that's what they're talking about. You had Israelites walking around with that silly thing on their head. Go ahead.
Jews were forced to use the gymnasium where all were naked, so they could not hide their circumcision and were punished.
Right. In the gymnasium, you got to understand, they did wrestling and stuff like that. But they had to do these events naked to make sure that they were not circumcised, because if they were circumcised, they were killed. Keep going.
The short Greek tunic incurred horror as it left the legs bare. The Greek obsession with the human body and its physique plunged old and young Jews into new Greek ideas. 2 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 13 to 14. There was such an extreme of Hellenization and an increase in the adoption of foreign ways because of the surpassing wickedness of Jason, who was ungodly and no high priest, that the priests were no longer intent upon their service at the altar, despising the sanctuary and neglecting the sacrifices. They hastened to take part in the unlawful proceedings in the wrestling arena after the call to the district. 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 54 to 56. Now the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded all idols throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire.
There you go. So there's no mention of Israel having oil. Remember we read that earlier? No mention of Israel having oil or lighting a seven branch menorah. That's the tradition of man. Okay? No mention of that for the dedication.
So why do our people have it then?
Well, it's not for dedication. Okay? It's not for dedication. We still have it. It was part of the sanctuary, but it had nothing. What I'm trying to say is that Hanukkah has that menorah thing. That menorah has nothing to do with dedication. Okay? Nothing to do with dedication. Alright? So, and neither was it mentioned at 8 days. Later in the Talmud mentions that the rededication, there was only enough olive oil to light the lamp for 1 day, but it burned for 8. That came from the Talmud. And we know how a valuable source the Talmud is, right? It's just like toilet paper.
Oh, wow.
You can use the Talmud. If you have a Talmud, the only thing that it's good for is toilet paper. We're in the right place too, aren't we? All right, so the reason why we celebrate, why do we celebrate the dedication, right? Let's go to 2 Maccabees 1. Second Maccabees 1, and we're going to read verses 17 and 18. Let's read.
2 Maccabees chapter 1 verse 17. Blessed be our power in all things, who hath delivered up the ungodly. Therefore, whereas we are now purposed to keep the purification of the temple upon the 25th day of the month Caslu, we thought it necessary to certify you therefore thereof, that ye also might keep it as the feast of the tabernacle, and of the fire which was given us when Nehemiah offered sacrifice, after that he had built the temple and the altar.
All right, so we're supposed to keep it just like the Feast of Tabernacles. So 7 days. That's where the 7 days comes in for dedication. So many people celebrate evil holidays and not the true holy days that we're supposed to celebrate. The Most High gave us these special days to observe from generation to generation, and those are in Leviticus the 23rd chapter. Let's go to Ecclesiasticus 43. Ecclesiasticus 43. And we're going to read verses 5 through 8. Let's read.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 43 verse 5. Great is the Lord that made it, and at his commandment it runneth hastily. He made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of time, and a sign of the world. From the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. Verse 8. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her chamber, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven.
Shining in the firmament of heaven. So the Feast of Dedication is a holy day in remembrance of how Jonathan Maccabee led our people in fighting against the Greeks and rededicating the temple of the Most High once it became control of our land. During that time, the Maccabees, after Antiochus and the Greeks defiled the temple, made a law that the children of Israel could no longer follow the commandments. And they began to profane the temple by sacrificing pigs in it. We are to celebrate this festival by having a holy convocation to the Most High. Let's go to 1 Maccabees 4, 56 through 61. First Maccabees 4. First Maccabees 4, verses 56 to 61. Go ahead.
First Maccabees chapter 4 verse 56. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise.
Mhm.
They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed and hanged doors upon them.
Mhm.
Thus was there very great gladness among the people,
Mhm.
for that the reproach of the heathen was put away.
So this is a celebratory feast. Great gladness, right? Deck out your houses if you can. Keep going.
Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days,
Mhm.
from the 25th day of the month Caslu with mirth and gladness.
So see, the dedication was ordained. Judas and his brethren, they ordained it, not the Most High. All right? Verse 16.
At that time also they builded up the Mount Sion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down,
Uh-huh.
as they had done before. Verse 61, and they set there a garrison to keep it, and fortified Bethsura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea.
Against Idumea. We're going to learn a little bit about Idumea next week. So, how did Yeshua fulfill this holy day? Right? How did Yeshua do that? We're going to go to Acts, the 7th chapter, and we're going to read verses 48 to 50. Acts 7, verses 48 to 50. All right, let's read that.
Acts chapter 7, verse 48. Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, as saith the prophet.
Mhm.
Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. What house will ye build me, saith the Lord? Or what is the place of my rest? Hath not my hand made all these things?
Now, it's not my hand made all these things. This holy day signifies that we must now dedicate our temples to the service of the Most High, just like Yeshua did. Right? Let's go over to 1 Corinthians 3. So we have to dedicate our temples to the Most High. Okay? That's how Yeshua celebrated the Feast of Dedication, by giving up his temple to the Most High. 1 Corinthians 3, and we're going to read 16 and 17. Okay, let's read that.
1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. Know ye not that ye are the temple of the Most High, and that the Spirit of the Most High dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of the Most High, him shall the Most High destroy. For the temple of the Most High is holy, which temple ye are.
You are the temple now. So when you're doing the Feast of Dedication, it's to celebrate your temple in the Most High. Okay, we don't have a temple where they do altars and, offer sacrifices. You are now the temple. So you are dedicating yourself to the Most High. Your temple cannot be defiled by pork, or defiled by Jesus, or defiled by Christmas, or defiled by Easter, or defiled by New Year's, or defiled by pork, or defiled by wine. You are now the temple. 1 Corinthians 6. Just like Judas Maccabee and his father and his brother, just like they fought to keep the temple clean. You should fight to keep your temple clean. Let's read. Verse 17 to 20.
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17. But he that is joined unto the Lord is one spirit. Flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, which is in you, which ye have of the Most High, and ye are not your own, for ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify the Most High in your body and in your spirit, which are the Most High.
There you go. So Yeshua will not satisfy explanations of Israelites. He would, but he was the promised Messiah of Israel. He would not provide liberation from the Romans, but he would provide liberation from sin and death through his death. So you see that kind of switch that around a little bit? Now it's your turn. Let's go Romans 5. Romans 5, 6 to 11. Read.
Romans chapter 5, verse 6. For when we were yet without strength, in due time Hamashiach died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet peradventure for a good man some will even dare to die. But the Most High commendeth his love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Hamashiach died for us. Much more then, being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. For if, when we were enemies, we were reconciled to the Most High by the death of his Son, much more, being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. Verse 11. And not only so, but we also joy in the Most High through our Lord Yeshua HaMashiach, by whom we have now received the atonement.
We have received the atonement. But he did rededicate the temple of his body in the resurrection. Okay? So let's see about that. We're going to go over to John, the 2nd chapter. We're going to read verses 18 to 22. John 2, 18 to 22. All right, John 2, 18 to 22.
John chapter 2, verse 18. Then answered the Jews and said unto him, What sign shewest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things? Yeshua answered and said unto them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up.
Destroy this temple, in 3 days I will raise it up. Verse 20.
Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple in building, and wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? But he spake of the temple of his body.
He was speaking of his body. They thought he was talking about the actual temple. 22.
And therefore he was risen from the dead. His disciples remembered that he had said this unto them, and they believed the scripture and the word which Yeshua had said.
So Yeshua did not set up a throne in Jerusalem, ruling over nations of the earth. But he did receive all the authority in heaven and on earth. He began in Jerusalem. His lordship and kingdom was proclaimed in the message that he would serve all nations. Let's go to Acts 1 and 8. Acts 1 and 8.
But ye shall receive power. After that, the Holy Spirit is come upon you. And ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Judea, and in Samaria, and unto the uttermost part of the earth.
All right, so we're still being oppressed now. The Gentile nations they've been obsessed with desecrating the temple of the Most High, right? Remember where Antiochus erected the image of Zeus? That image of Zeus is still there in the Roman Catholic Church, and they call him Saint Peter. They're still doing it today. Today, the temple is disgraced. Today, the temple that's in Jerusalem is disgraced to Allah. But Daniel prophesied that many within Israel will enter into a covenant or an agreement with the Gentile ruler. Daniel said that in Daniel 9:27. So let's get that. Daniel 9:27. All right, let's read.
Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate.
All right, so that will be poured upon the desolate. Let's go over to Isaiah 28:15, I think. We will make a covenant. That covenant is for life. Now, the covenant that we're speaking of with Daniel is a covenant of death, right? And I'm going to show you that. Thank you. Let's go Isaiah 28, I think it's 28:15. Let's read.
Isaiah chapter 28, verse 15. Because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with hell are we at agreement, when the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us. For we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood have we hid ourselves.
As we hid ourselves, we're going to go over to Luke 21. Jerusalem captured, Israel oppressed by the Gentiles. Luke 21, and we're going to read verses 20 to 22. Okay, let's read.
Luke chapter 21, verse 20. And another came, saying, Lord, behold, here is thy pound, which I have kept laid up in the napkin. For I feared thee, because thou art an austere man. Thou takest up that thou layest not down, and reapest that thou didst not sow. And he said unto him, out of thine own mouth will I judge thee, thou wicked servant. Thou knewest that I was an austere man, taking up that I lay not down, and reaping that I did not sow.
All right. So once again, that's the coming of the Gentiles, the overspread of abominations, right? For 1 week. And then in the midst of that week, cease. That was Yeshua's ministry. In the midst of Yeshua's ministry, it stopped. He's going to do it again. All right? Let's go over to 2. Revelation 11:2 ties with Luke 21, which ties into Daniel 9, which ties into Isaiah 28. Let's read that.
Revelation chapter 11, verse 2. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 40 and 2 months.
40 and 2 months. So just like Antiochus Epiphanes, he will desecrate the third temple with this idolatrous image and making it desolate. And Yeshua talked about this, so let's continue on in Matthew the 24th chapter. So the scriptures kind of tied together. Right? Daniel 9:27, Yeshua, in the middle of the week, he shall be killed in the midst of the week.
Oh, that's what we said.
Right. Overspread abominations and went desolate. That's talking about the Gentiles until the time of consummation. Then you go into Isaiah 28 and find out that the covenant was made with death because Israel, of course, is going to be Israel. Then we went to Luke 21 where Yeshua talked about the desolation that's coming. He warned us. Revelation 11, he talks about the time of the Gentiles. Temple is going to be discouraged. Now Matthew 24, 15, 16.
Matthew chapter 24, verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand.
Whoso readeth, let him understand. Understand Daniel 9, understand Daniel 8. Go ahead.
Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
Flee into the mountains. Many people will fall away in apostasy and they'll bow down to the God of Christmas, the God of New Year, the God of Hanukkah, Satan. 2 Thessalonians 2:3. And then we're going to get back to Matthew 24. Second Thessalonians 2 and 3. Let's read that.
2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
Right. But the faithful within Israel will flee to the mountains of the wilderness. Many faithful will lose their life. So let's go back to Matthew 24 and read 21 and 23.
Matthew chapter 24, verse 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time. No, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened.
Right. 23.
Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Hamashiach, or there, believe it not.
Don't believe what I say. The shine is there. The shine is there. Don't believe it. Right? Because you're going to know when he comes. Time of great tribulation, Matthew 24, 21, will be like nothing this world has ever seen before. Let's go to Jeremiah 30. It's 30 and 7, where it talks about Jacob's trouble. Jeremiah 30, and I believe it's 7. Then let's read.
Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it.
All right, that's the end. So Messiah is making his second return, his second coming. We're being called into the wilderness. Right? But the Most High, who is faithful, will again remember his people Israel, and will send Messiah to deliver the remnant. Let's see that in Zechariah 6. And then we're going to go to the prayer that was performed that was said for the dedication. Zechariah 6, 12 and 13. Okay, let's read that.
Zechariah chapter 6, verse 12. And speak unto him, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, Behold, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both.
The counsel of peace. Right? Let's read the prayer. Let's go to 2 Maccabees, chapter 2. And let's read 23 to 33. This is the prayer of dedication. Second Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 23 to 33. Listen to this prayer. Let's read it.
2 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 23. All these things I say, being declared by Jason of Cyrene in 5 books, we will essay to
What's 2 Maccabees 2? 2 Maccabees 2, 23 to 33. Hold on. Give me a second. Let's have a typo again. And it starts off in the priest made a prayer.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Second Maccabees chapter 1.
2 Maccabees chapter 1 verse 23. And the priest made a prayer whilst the sacrifice was consuming. I saved both the priest and all the rest, Jonathan beginning, and the rest answering thereunto as Nehemiah did. And the prayer was after this manner.
Listen to this prayer.
O Lord, Lord power, creator of all things, who art fearful and strong and righteous and merciful, and the only and gracious King, the only giver of all things, the only just, almighty, and everlasting. Thou that deliverest Israel from all trouble, and didst choose the fathers and sanctify them. Receive the sacrifice for thy whole people, Israel, and preserve thy own portion, and sanctify it. Gather those together that are scattered from us, deliver them that serve among the heathen. Look upon them that are despised and abhorred, and let the heathen know that thou art our power. Punish them that oppress us, and with pride do us wrong. Plant thy people again in thy holy place, as Moses hath spoken. Verse 30, and the priest sung psalms of thanksgiving. Now when the sacrifice was consumed, Nehemiah commanded the water that was left to be poured on the great stone. When this was done, there was kindled a flame, but it was consumed by the light that shined from the altar. So when this matter was known, it was told the king of Persia that in the place where the priests that were led away had hid the fire, there appeared water, and that Nehemiah had purified the sacrifices therewith.
All right, that's going to be our last scripture for today. But we're going to end with the Josephus. We're going to go to the complete works of Josephus. This is in the book Antiquity of the Jews. And this is chapter 7. And this is pages 393 to 394. And this will conclude our teaching for today. Let's read.
Josephus, chapter 7, page 393. When therefore the generals of Antiochus' army had been beaten so often, Judas assembled the people together and told them that after these many victories which the Most High had given them, they ought to go up to Jerusalem and purify the temple, and offer the appointed sacrifices. But as soon as he, with the whole multitude, was come to Jerusalem and found the temple deserted, and its gates burnt down, and plants growing in the temple of their own accord, on account of its desertion, he and those that were with him began to lament, and were quite confounded at the sight of the temple. So he chose out some of his soldiers, and gave them order to fight against those guards that were in the citadel, until he thought he should have purified the temple. When therefore he had carefully purged it, and had brought in new vessels, the candlestick, the table of shewbread, and the altar of incense, which were made of gold, he hung up the veils at the gates, and added doors to them. He also took down the altar of burnt offering.
They said the screen was frozen.
Okay, what can we do something like that?
They can still hear.
Let's take care of the screen. Let's go.
Which were made of gold, he hung up the veils at the gates, and added doors to them. He also took down the altar of burnt offering, and built a new one of stones that he gathered together, and not of such as were hewn with iron tools. So on the 25th day of the month Caslu, which the Macedonians call Apelles, They lighted the lamps that were on the candlestick and offered incense upon the altar of incense, and laid the loaves upon the table of shewbread, and offered burnt offerings upon the new altar of burnt offering. Now it so fell out that these things were done on the very same day on which their divine worship had fallen off, and was reduced to a profane and common use after 3 years' time. For so it was that the temple was made desolate by Antiochus, and so continued for 3 years. This desolation happened to the temple in the 145th year, on the 25th day of the month of Pelus, and on the 153rd Olympiad. But it was dedicated anew on the same day the 25th of the month of Pelus, in the 148th year, on the 154th Olympiad. And this desolation came to pass according to the prophecy of Daniel,
Prophecy of Daniel, you read that in Daniel, the 8th chapter, and Daniel 11.
which was given 408 years before, when he declared that the Macedonians would dissolve that worship
That's right.
for some time. Now Judas celebrated the festival of the restoration of the sacrifices of the temple for 8 days,
Feast of dedication, we going?
and omitted no sort of pleasures thereon. But he feasted them upon very rich and splendid sacrifices, and he honored the Most High, and delighted them by hymns and songs. Nay, they were so very glad at the revival of their customs, when after a long time of intermission, they unexpectedly had regained the freedom of their worship, that they made it a law for their posterity, that they should keep a festival, on account of the restoration of their temple worship, for 8 days. And from that time to this, we celebrate this festival, and call it Lights.
Right, and this, remember, Josephus was about, I think, 100 years after the shot. And they still did dedication. This went right with what we read in Maccabees. Keep going.
I suppose the reason was because this liberty beyond our hopes appeared to us, and that thence was the name given to that festival. Judas also rebuilt the walls round about the city, and reared towers of great height against the incursions of enemies, and set guards therein. He also fortified the city Bethsura, that it might serve as a citadel against any distresses that might come from our enemies.
They were something else. That's just a small portion of what Judas Maccabee did. All right, so that's going to conclude our lesson today for the Feast of Pentecost. We will open it up for questions. I do apologize for the screen being frozen. Have any questions on the chat? Or comments?
So since I watched last night's video, and when the Israelites were in the wilderness, they called Egypt the land of milk and honey. It's the same thing today. When I speak to the truth to the history of America, of what the Jesuits did to us, it's a hard to get off saying we should thank them for giving us the Bible. They call America the land of milk and honey. They love to fornicate with festivals and idolatry, of bondage, just like the wilderness, same thing thousands of years later. It's sad.
Oh my goodness, they call America the land of milk and honey.
Says,
They gave us the Bible, sure. Right. They gave us the NIV. They also gave us the ESV.
Queen James.
The Queen James Version. They gave us a bunch of Bibles. Oh my goodness. So people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, yeah.
Elder, even with these scriptures of Feast of Dedication, how do I defend this feast when during the whole year I am rebuking men made feast days? And in First Maccabees, it clearly says that man ordained it.
Well, you have to think of it like this. Those feasts, those holidays, what's behind those holidays? What's behind the Feast of Dedication, and that's your answer. The Feast of Dedication was basically us taking back our temple from a very wretched, evil, disgusting, nasty, manipulative, horrible king. Christmas has nothing to do with that. Easter has nothing to do with that. In fact, Christmas and Easter, basically, they're about orgies. Right? So, it's when we talk about the traditions of men, we're not talking about either Purim or dedication. Now understand this. Purim and dedication are optional. You don't have to miss something. We're doing dedication because, and you got to read the Josephus. If you read the Josephus on what the Maccabees did, you would want to celebrate this once a month. So we celebrated because of what the Maccabees did and how they, got back our temple from an evil, wretched king. That's not what Christmas is about. That's not what Thanksgiving's about. That's not what Easter is about. So there's your answer.
No, that is part so fair. So is it fair to say we can do man-made feast days as long as it isn't pagan?
There's only two. Dedication, Purim. That's it. There are no other feast days that are not ordained by the Most High in Leviticus. There's only two. And the reason why we follow dedication is what I just mentioned. The reason why we follow Purim is because guess what? If it wasn't for Sister Hadassah, none of us would be here.
So let's just clear this up. No, we are not to follow what man has ordained because that's evil. What these two feasts are about was something that was done out of love. Something was done towards the Most High to lift his people up.
Right.
To add on, not to take away. Things was done, these two feast days was done to get things back in order.
Right.
With the Maccabees, if they did not do that, who would have did it? Who would have stood up and, to take the altar back, to
Right.
take our temple back? So no, let's not get it twisted, let's not get it confused. Because nobody's gonna say that, a new revelation is saying that it's okay to follow man holidays. No, that's not what we're saying.
Right. You have to understand the origin. The origin of dedication was taking back the temple from wicked King Antiochus. The origin of Purim was Sister Hadassah going to the king and letting him know the plot of Haman, which would have killed every single Israelite that was in Persia. Christmas, nothing to do with that. Christmas is about filling up your flesh. Thanksgiving is about gluttony. Easter is about sex. Okay? What else?
So it's a hypothetical question because a human atheist could rebuke me saying I don't celebrate man-made days, but I celebrate dedication because it's a righteous act.
It's a righteous act.
Well, I want to know why you arguing with the atheists anyway. If they don't believe, they don't believe, so why are you casting your pearls before the swine? Lest he turn around and trample all over you with it. So why are you wasting your time? Either they believe or they don't. I don't see where Yeshua was in the Bible. I'm asking was in the scriptures, arguing with anybody, forcing anything down their throat. He's not a tyrant.
You don't have to argue, but you do want to put your point.
You put it out there and leave it. You don't have to keep going backward and forth, because if you do, you're going to become angry and you're going to end up sinning.
Because there's a scripture in 1 Timothy that tells us that we are to do that. So you're right by doing it, by telling them this is what it's supposed to be.
And let it go. You're not going to, if you continue to sit there and try to fuss with somebody, you're trying to make them, convince them to believe something.
Yeah, you don't have to argue with nobody. Even though you're right. Go ahead. What else?
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right. So like I said, I want to apologize for the frozen screen. We are going to close with the piece of dedication. I pray that your meal or whatever you're going to do is satisfactory to the Most High. I pray that, I was going to say something about the cake, but I pray all things are well. All right,
Well, a Christian technically can't be an atheist.
correct.
And try questions me, but I must prove all.
Oh, no, you got to. If they're questioning you, that's not arguing. You're proving what the Bible says. So I totally am 100% with you on that one. If they're coming at you with questions and you throwing the Bible, not throwing the Bible at them because that's assault. But if you're giving them scriptures back, do that. Do that, yeah, they'll get you, they'll lock you up. They'll say, he assaulted me with the King James. And then that'll be the start of the King James Bible being outlawed.
No, it's already a start.
Right? All right. So that's fine. If a Christian comes to you and starts questioning, yeah, you should. Yes, you should. All right? We're going to end with Psalms 1 through 3. And then we're going to have our shuffle. All right? Psalms chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. Right? Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Remember next Shabbat, me and have Demetrius. All right? And we're going to have our show.
If you have enjoyed this lesson and have found it educational, please like and subscribe to the channel to get future teaching.
Right, so remember, we'll be back on live stream Friday. Our Friday night lesson is going to be on family conduct. Next week's lesson, Hebrew Israelite awakening. Who is Edom Esau? Very informative lesson that we got coming next week. I know it's a long time waiting, AR, but I know it's a long time waiting, but we're going to have that lesson next week, and we're going to give all the praises to the Most High, Ahaya Ashar Ahai. So with that being said, we're going to conclude our Feast of Dedication. If you have a question, send email, get the number 2, thewilderness1@gmail.com. We'll put that on the chat. And we want to say Kwam Yasharallah and happy Feast of Dedication.
Kwam Yasharallah!